Good afternoon. I thought I should do a stream because it's becoming, like, there's so many factors, it's becoming increasingly hard to update in the channel in text form without like writing reams of information, which probably nobody reads anyway. So for quite a while I've been more bearish on Bitcoin than others, due mainly to the US dollar tether chart. So again, like, if you followed me then you should know this, but this hit 6 month demand a while ago now. Yeah, and it took some time to move, but it came down midway through that zone. But really, like, if I saw this chart on any other coin, FX, whatever, I'd be very bullish. Let me just turn off my notifications, because it's always when I'm on stream I start getting loads of text messages and things. Yeah, so on any other chart I'd be extremely bullish on this, like almost from a 6 month perspective, and you can see, 6 months hit here, bounced up, made a new 6 month, not even a strong one, particularly strong one there, but still held and pushed up. And then again we've come back and we've made another 6 month demand, and this is obviously slightly different to the lower ones because we've had a 3 candle 18 month retracement, whereas the others were much quicker. And I think we can't really compare to previous bear markets, because I think 2019, that would be the last one, I guess, that was significantly shorter. I'm not sure why that candle's so, it was still a couple of years, so I'm not sure why that candle's so small, but anyway, I've never really thought about that. But either way, I've been more bullish on this, and thus bearish on crypto as a whole. Then I think 3 month isn't anything different. So 3 month, we've got a 3 month supply up here, and then more imminently we've got a monthly supply here. So while we're coming off the 6 month demand, there is a monthly supply incoming. And to be fair, this actually looks not dissimilar to Bitcoin in reverse. And Bitcoin had a monthly supply here as well, and it went straight through it on the ETF news. So obviously this isn't necessarily, maybe it has some reverse ETF news, some ETFs get cancelled news when everybody's throwing all their money in at the top. But anyway, we're looking at least for that to be tested, and then to see what the reaction is here on this. And then obviously as a result, that means I'm basically bearish on the crypto market until this gets tested, and or like I say, this could break and we could go all the way up here. On the plus side, we didn't create a monthly demand on this, which we would have done if this last candle here had closed above that level. But it is clearly starting this, it's now got a weekly uptrend, came back, retested the 6 month level in a 5 day in there, and then has moved up, now has created, it's got a weekly demand down here, so could push back down into there. Maybe we'll create a new weekly here by the end of this week, depending on the next few days. And then more critically, again, we are now, so short of us having a swing fail of this high, which is always possible, we are potentially going to create this new 3 day demand at the end of the day today. I'm going to draw it in because I think, unless when we have quite a few more hours left, but given it's a US public holiday, I don't necessarily think that Bitcoin's going to have a random pump in the next few hours, but I could be wrong. Yeah, so if we create a new 3 day demand here, again, we're looking for the test of this, and then that move back up into this monthly up here, or alternatively, we'll just keep going if I'm not sure what the lower time frames are doing. Yeah, I mean, it's just a grind up, so yeah, there's a 4 hour there, so we could come back down into here, and I think I was looking earlier, I think it's a 2 hour. Yeah, so I mean, it's possible we get this swing fail at the high here, and we know that Bitcoin's in a place where it could bounce. But yeah, that's why I just wanted to reiterate what this chart is showing. So from the macro perspective, I'm expecting up, and I don't want to, well, I do want to freak people out actually, because for these reasons that I say don't hold on to alts, because there's the amount of people I saw calling alts at the tops and then saying hold and then buying every bounce, you know, be it for scalps and or for low, you know, I'm going to invest in alts long term here, and I'm seeing all the alts just break. So in reverse, the alts have had a monthly demand like this, but this is in the inverse. I'm going to show an alt to show, but a lot of these have just gone straight through it because the higher time frame, they're coming from a 3 or 6 month supply. So we're seeing a lot of alts kind of, you know, in reverse up here now or down low, if that makes sense, which is, you know, dreadful for any holders. And I've said a few times myself that I thought that, you know, a lot of the ones that didn't break the 3 month supplies on them were likely to die forever, and that is kind of what we're seeing at the moment. I don't know if they're going to die forever because forever is a long time, but that is what we've seen, what we're seeing so far. Anyway, so that's US dollar's dominance, and then Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, while everybody's talking about this local range, and that's fairly blindingly obvious, so I don't necessarily want to talk too much about that. I think people are also, to some extent, forgetting that we have this, you know, giant range here, and we have, you know, failed to break out of the top of that range. You know, it's closed a little bit, closed a couple of candles over it, but now, you know, it's had 4 or 5 months and it's failed to get above all-time high for any period of time. So, and you know, if we're looking at this as a range, then obviously it can revisit the bottom of the range. And you know, there is a 3 month demand down here, which hasn't been tested. You know, and again, people say, oh, it's never going to happen, we're never going to go back to 20 or 30k, but I mean, that's what everybody was saying here, we're never going to go back to 20 or 30k, and we did. And in fact, you know, obviously not quite as low as we could have done. And you know, I do like to show this on the linear chart. A lot of people use the log chart because, you know, the log, I always feel like, you know, the log, it makes you biased to being more bullish, you know, because this does look like less of a retracement. But then also this kind of looks, yeah, more clear that it hasn't properly broken out of the high, particularly if you look at the 3 month. And I think, you know, the 3 month, is that a swing failure on the 3 month? Kind of hard to tell with my trillions of lines. No, it's not, as it has gone slightly over, close slightly above, but anyway, you know, there's obviously the support that we can get on the way down. You know, it might pick up support on this annual level, which is what, 46,200. And certainly we're going to get bounces on the way down if that's the case. Then 6 month we've got, yeah, it's basically the same, 46,200. So certainly we're going to get bounces on the way. I was really hoping, so we did on this chart only close a 2 month supply, sorry, yeah, 2 month demand, so we closed slightly above here, but unfortunately it's a weak one. You know, this is a doji shooting star candle almost, and now we've just come straight back into it, you know, and if we were going to get traction, which should have happened right off the top of there, 61,200, we should have had that immediately, and we haven't. We've come back through it. So if we take out this candle and close below that, I mean, on the 2 months, so it's a while till that gets completed, but yeah, it's not looking overly promising. And we only had the 2 month on this chart. We didn't have, you know, the career chart, hadn't got given anything, and the CME chart had just closed midway down that candle. So yeah, not looking overly promising, but we are still earlier in the month. But again, then you're going on the monthly, you've got these railroad tracks again, which is not a positive pattern. You know, when I looked at, you know, and again, my overall bearishness as well is like, you know, we haven't had this sort of B wave from this big, the 21 bull run. So again, is this an expanded B wave? And I don't know, like, Elliot enough to know. I mean, it's obviously looks impulsive, but you know, strictly, like I said, we had a monthly supply here. I think we should have come down from here on that B wave, but then the ETF pushed it through. But then you potentially get this sort of what I would consider a fake out, and it's not dissimilar to what I was thinking and reporting here. That again, we had this. We should have rejected there. Should obviously is a very subjective word. We should have, like, this had dropped. I mean, it hadn't broken demand, but you know, it was a significant drop, and we should have, I think, had a bigger rejection there. But then it had this sort of meme push up to take out the high before the bigger drop. You know, and that's what a B wave is, and I think even earlier people have given this as an A, B, C. So an expanded B wave, and a B wave is basically when everybody is FOMOing back in, and you've seen countless B waves on alts recently, and those are the people that have got wrecked. But you know, it's that you've had the initial drop, people are like, right, we're back to up only, and they FOMO back in only for it to reject the next supply and then fall. And so again here, obviously it didn't, it pushed higher, and in the case of some alts we've done that, although not many, but most of them have rejected either in this equivalent zone or even not got back past here in the case of the majors. So again, is this like that sort of same extended B for a much bigger C now? And again, wouldn't surprise me, and I just think you need to think of all possibilities. And yes, while we have zones that we can consider on the way down, I'm not just going to say, right, leave the market and come back at 10k. It's still, but it would not surprise me if we did get that bigger drop. Anyway, on the lower time frame, let's not be too, so that's just my sort of thoughts on the bigger picture. But while I say yes, it could go down as low as, you know, all the way down to the 11k mark, and I wouldn't, that is a pattern that, you know, we've seen on a smaller scale here. Obviously we have zones in between that we need to consider for bounces, and you know, I don't want to be too bearish when we haven't even broken this upper range yet. The only reason I want to consider those bigger picture things is because of this US dollar dominance chart and my general bullishness on this in isolation coming off 6 month demand. So where we're at now on Bitcoin, I really need to move all my scalp crosses and things off here just to make it a bit easier to see. We had that 2 month demand that I've just already talked about. So yes, it can still save itself here. You know, it hasn't taken out the low of that, so we can potentially get a push up from here. I have left the monthly, well, the 2 month unconfirmed, but also monthly level in there because I think that's a possible level of rejection. And then on top of that, so we've got a whole load of confluence of supply above. So from a bull perspective, I'm not buying here. I want to see, so either we get some massive bounce today and this 3 day doesn't confirm, but at the moment I'm assuming we're going to get a 3 day supply here. I'm looking for shorts here if we get a retest. If it gets reclaimed, great, then we look for longs later. But at this stage, I feel like, so we had this red box. So again, part of the reason I did this video is because the red box, I felt like it wasn't very clear on the chart when I just talked about it in the text. So we had this red box, so this was the initial zone where we got, I mean, we got a bit of a wick down. I think on the other exchanges, maybe BitMEX didn't go all the way, it was the only one to go all the way through, but this is the one that was holding the support broadly from that first wave. Then we got this deviation below and we reclaimed and held the bottom of the red box for the second push up. That push was unable to break the high, which makes me nervous. Having said that, we are in this, you know, potential giant bull flag, and I've kind of drawn the two channels using the lows and using the highs, but we are still in this sort of large bull flag possibility. But also we're back, you know, I wanted us to hold this red box on the new tests, and we haven't. We also had like a weekly demand in here, it's gone straight through that. And while, you know, all these zones here are weak because we never broke the sellers on this side from the original sellers, they did have a good reaction. So obviously you're still looking for possible longs. You can see I've got a couple of question marks in there because there were scalp ones and I didn't really like where the demand there. As always, I'm just trading both directions. So I was looking for the shorts through here, didn't get to the zone that I wanted. And that's my only concern, also with looking for shorts in this 3 day. So while I'm, another cross down there. So while I'm looking for shorts here, or possibly higher than that actual level, but we'll see. I'm conscious that we have left some stops up here and an untested 12-hour here. There are untested zones up here as well, but again, like if price is bearish, it's very unlikely to revisit that high. However, you know, I'll do fibs on this later as well, but this is the initial area I'm looking for rejection because of the red box, because of the new potential 3 day supply in here, and then also because of that flip maybe of the monthly level. If we get a swing fail at these lows, I'll be much more wary and I'll probably look for that higher entry, because you're looking for, if it's stop hunt at the lows, then you're looking at least for a stop hunt of some highs, or just the move up, back up. But yeah, if we flip this 3-day back to demand, and it's possible that we do, and just go and have a look over here. So again, with the deviation we had here, there was not as a good 3-day supply as this is going to be, but we had a 3-day supply here, and we came back up, and it went right to the top of it, and then swing failed it before we got a retracement, but it did go through it. So if this does continue as strong support, then I would want to see that broken. But until I see it, I'm going to stick with the bear side, with the disclaimer that obviously we're at the bottom of the range, we're at the bottom of the bull flag. These zones are weak until we see it actually drop hard off there. But yeah, this for me is a viable short level now from various confluent reasons. Korea is basically showing me pretty much the same thing as is the CME chart. The only thing with the CME is it's not going to make, I don't know, these hours on here have gone slightly weird. I think it's the public holiday. So if I look at the daily chart, it still tells me there's 1 day, 6 hours until the candle closes, which doesn't really make sense. So I'm never quite sure when these candles are closing, but this will create a sort of slightly more dubious 3-day supply, but possibly not until Monday. But like I say, I'm unsure because of the hours being messed up. We got the rejection at the CME gap yesterday. It was a 3-weekly level. But again, the levels on this are just a bit messed up. But yeah, it was a 3-week level there. Not confirmed, but confirmed on the 2-week. So not surprising to have that rejection there. And I don't know what this level is. Definitely trying to draw a 3-week, I'm not sure. I'll figure those out later. What we do have here though is prices now just testing this low, which it hasn't quite got to on the US dollar chart. So this is 56.910, that low, and the candle has reached 56.915. So it's $5 above the low, and I think my understanding of CME is actually there's a $5 price difference. So again, we could still see this support, this carry on as support, and then possibility of a larger descending triangle and a move back up into here. But again, while we're still under the equivalent red box, and I think I drew this on the 8-hour in here, it's a bit cleaner here. So again, it's the last demand after the impulse, and this one could be considered as well, but that's held as the first support. So when you see that break, you're starting to look at a range breakdown and looking for the shorts off the lower highs, which is why I had so many shorts in for the retests. Excuse me. So yeah, there's not much more to say on that. I can delete these. So the CME, yeah, that's what I was going to comment on the CME gaps. So we had left 2 gaps below on the pump on Monday, and then we had this gap above from 3 weeks ago. So we just filled that gap on Monday, and then just went down and took out the 2 lower gaps. Was looking for a possibility of longs on these lower gaps, purely because they can act as support. But we barely got anything, so I'll show the detailed chart. So yeah, this is the detailed chart that I'm saying, okay, we could get a bounce where the CME gap is, and we did, but just straight back up into local supply. And then also the possibility of a swing failure of that low, because we hadn't quite hit. So when I had these 2 original entries for the test, we kind of went through the first one and didn't quite hit the second one. So I was like, okay, it's possible we go into this 12-hour for a swing fail. We haven't got the swing fail, or at least not on the lower time frames. And again, this just needs to pick up quite rapidly. But we're just now right deep in that 12-hour, right at the bottom, at the last point of survival, basically. So nothing really saying make me nothing really telling me I should long here, other than the fact it's at the low. But there's certainly nothing lower time frame as yet. You know, we've still got a 2-hour supply. We're still rejecting every single supply, which we have been doing for the last day or two. So anyway, you're just looking, as always, you're looking for some supply to break, and then for some demand to hold for a retest. And you know, what time frame you do that is up to you. So like for example here, like the supply broke and then it took a couple of days to come back for the retest, but this is only on the hourly chart. Maybe you would have got something better on the 15-minute, I'm not sure. But personally, I don't FOMO into these unless I actually see a significant reaction, and so far we haven't really seen that. Plus on top of that, it's July the 4th, so we're not getting any US input on this today. So just having a quick look at the other data hasn't really been very useful anyway. So if you follow me, you'll know I got quite upset that Tensor was disappeared for a while, Tensorcharts, which is where I used to look at all my heat maps and walls. Thankfully it got brought back after a week. I'm guessing they don't make any money off it, so it's very generous of them to keep it. The notable thing on here is that, so there's two things that I always have shown, or that I have had for years, is that, so I've got a 50 order book, so such that these price points, which are $100 apart, will show a line when there's more than 50 Bitcoin in that area. I actually don't use that much, and what I use more is this order book heat map down the bottom. Actually it's behind my picture so you can't see it, but just down here to the left, and if you click on that, then you'll see the minimum volume. And I've always had minimum volume of 50 in here, and this is for the Binance chart, and obviously it's variable what you want to see for different exchanges, but for the Binance chart I've always had 50, and normally you see a whole bunch of yellow lines. What I'm noticing recently is there are none, so I changed it to 30, very slow, and you can see now where all the walls are, and this, from my understanding, is walls at a particular price point, whereas this is within the range of $100. These are at a particular price point, so I guess these I see more as individuals. I'm not sure how it's calculated or anything really, but I think I probably used to know, but I forgot them anyway. I'm frozen a little bit here. But yeah, I see these as like individuals making walls, and therefore what the larger players are doing more than the lines, which are the green and red lines. So these I consider more useful as walls, but it is notable that this has now dropped, so now I have to put the minimum volume to 30, so you know, really basically the big players just aren't caring, is kind of how I see that. So now the yellow ones are going to be 30 Bitcoin, and they're just not showing up on the 50 minimum volume filter, so therefore they are all quite small. However, this kind of gives me a better sense of where I might see bounces. Although you can see also that quite often the price will just go straight through walls, but like I say, these are now small walls because of this 30 boundary. While this was gone, I picked up Tradinglite. So this has some benefits and some pitfalls. Like I paid for, I think, the medium plan. I think the upper plan, maybe I can get more precision, but what I was missing is that bottom section. I think these yellow lines here are just equivalent to the red and green that I was just looking at on Tensor. So, for example, here I can see there's 192 Bitcoin at 56,500, but there's a $25. So it's slightly better than Tensor in that, well, I mean, I suppose I could Tensor, I could probably choose the precision. I could probably get better precision on Tensor, but this is basically telling me there's 192 Bitcoin between 56,500 and 56,25, I'm guessing. So 56,525. So again, it's like, and what's been fairly unuseful on this is that recently, I don't know if this is normal, I've just never seen it because I've never used Tradinglite before, but on Binance at least, you know, it has a wall every $500. So this is fairly useless to me when I'm trying to look for, Tensor I always managed to use quite well for confluence with the bounces, and that's possibly because they're real walls from individuals, rather than these maybe are more inclined to be spoof walls. So, I mean, they are varying sizes, but every $500 just makes it fairly useless. So 56, and then, you know, there's a smaller one there, 55,650, so that's probably a more interesting one. And then 55k, 54k, you know, so it's not particularly useful if there's just going to be a wall every $1,000. Then Coinbase obviously is potentially slightly more useful because that's where big players are trading as well, but again, 55k, 550k, I think again these are probably going to be 52k, 53k, yeah, so every $1,000, and again, not useful. Somebody also pointed out to me that Binance's FD USD pair, this one on the right here, has most volume now, so I just kind of added this just for interest's sake. But again, like I haven't used it in massive detail. I think I used it for a couple of days and I kind of thought, well, it's not really showing me an awful lot in addition. And the other one I always like to use on Tensor is Bitstamp, because again, while it's not a heavily used exchange, if Bitstamp do put walls, my understanding is that at least they used to be used, presumably still are, to calculate the BitMEX prices, or the leverage exchange prices, which use an average. So they were using Kraken and Bitstamp and Bitfinex. So like, again, I'm not sure if it's changed, but for that reason, I've historically always looked at Bitstamp. And Bitstamp again is quite interesting because normally it has very little on it. So if it does have something on it, then you're kind of like, okay, Bitstamp's like trying to drive the price at the moment, and it's worth watching. And again, Tensor also has Bitstamp. Let me just go into Bitstamp. Being blind. Yeah, so again, like I generally have to keep the minimum volume to 30 on this anyway, because it's obviously a smaller exchange. But actually, I'll try and change it to 50 and see if it does give me anything. No, so there's nothing on the 50 on here either. But again, like particularly when price is ranging, I don't consider the walls much. But certainly if you're having a drop, you will see clusters, drops and rallies. So you can see up here, there's very little on Bitstamp. So now it is starting to get more manipulation, or more not manipulation, just genuine orders perhaps. But sometimes when there's a big drop and then there's a bounce, you can see, for example, like when this was coming down here, walls are being placed above. So someone's trying to push the price lower to pick up buys before letting it go back up. And then you can see the walls get pulled out when price actually gets there, because they're not real sells, they're just trying to spoof the price down to pick up their buys. But yeah, like I say, walls have been much less useful, and liquidations is the other one I normally look at. I'll try and open the right. So liquidation is something I normally look at, but again, even so, we typically look at the 24-hour. This is the 24-hour, and now it's not ideal looking at it now because we have had this 2 or 3 day drop. But I think when I was looking at over here, there was just so much green and not much yellow. So I don't know if there's just not much leverage trading going on. But again, like I don't use these as targets per se, or I don't use them to drive trying to get into a trade. However, if I'm looking, let's say, to short in this zone, 58k for example, because there's a supply there, if there are a lot of liquidations lying above the zone, then I will be slightly more conscious and wary to let's see. Someone saying hi to me. Hi, Disclosure Crypto. Could you check out GARI Network? GARI Network. I have no idea what that is. Is it a chart? I have no idea what it is, or are you just like marketing spamming my YouTube? But yeah, if it's a coin, tell me the name of the coin, and then yes, I can check it out. Yeah, anyway, so back to liquidations. Yeah, so this is like, I don't use them to say prices. Like people will say, oh, price must go to 830 because there are liquidations up there. When price is dropping, it will not go there. If it's ranging, then it's useful. But if price is just going to drop, it's not going to go back there just to collect liquidations. It's going to leave those people trapped in there. Or the people who are long here, that's going to leave those trapped, and the shorts are just happily short. So I don't believe in that. However, what I do say, as I was saying a minute ago, like if I'm thinking of shorting this supply or this supply, then I'm just conscious if there are a lot of liquidations above that level. So what else? So those are the critical things. And yeah, so the Exo again was not giving me an awful lot from in the case of data. Like most of the exchanges just look really choppy side to side. OI is still going up on Binance, that's the only one it is, but again it's not that useful because OI always seems to go up on Binance unless there's some real massive volatility. And yeah, so from the I think if you look at the 4 hour on this, which I won't load because it will take too long, it just shows OI permanently going up and their longs permanently going up, because I think everyone on Binance just longs. The other thing that's of interest for a possible bounce, which I did like seeing earlier, was this. So this is Coinalyze, which is useful data, and you can set up and use their indicators. This is free. Oh, interesting. So the CBD is just taking a huge dive there because somebody obviously dumped a bunch there. But what I was noticing, if you look at the downtrend since when's that? This morning, or Asia today. So price has been going down, but the CBD for Coinbase has been going up until, well, it's still going up even though it's just had a big dump here, but it's been going up. And that generally shows buyer exhaustion, seller exhaustion. So the people are buying and the price is still dropping, but the sellers as the taker volume aren't able to, well, the buyers are overwhelming them anyway, so the sellers are getting exhausted. And thus so the price should see then a short-term reversal. Doesn't necessarily mean a major reversal, but can be a short-term reversal, which might be what we're getting now. The only thing counter to that is we're not seeing the same on the aggregated CBD spot, like it's still just following the down the price is doing. So if I look at the Binance equivalent of this chart, so this CBD here is the Coinbase specific, and then this is the aggregated version, but the Binance one is just showing this continued down, and the same with the futures. And then the aggregated OI, which can be useful, but I prefer to look at the net longs and shorts that I see on Exocharts. But obviously we're just seeing OI really dying off on this downtrend. So again, that doesn't necessarily give me, like, so while we want to see OI increasing to support trend. So we're not seeing that, which again is a promising thing, except we are seeing a little bit more recently. So it's promising if that's the case, but then we also need spot buying to support this back up again. So we're getting a little bit of that on Coinbase. So it's interesting. There are some potentially positive factors in here, but from a TA perspective, as I've kept saying, you know, these charts just don't make me very happy for the crypto market as a whole. And then let's quick look at the totals. So again, like, I think they're really just going to reflect what Bitcoin reflects from the total and total 2 perspective. So again, total made a 2-month demands, come right down to the bottom of it. It's looking like a fairly ugly weekly candle, but it still has time to rescue itself. Total 2 is basically the same. And I haven't discussed Ether yet, so Ether's like another interesting one, but Total 2 is sort of more firmly still in the range, whereas Total 1's like tapping on the edge of it. Total 3 is the one that I've commented on yesterday, and why I said be really wary of your alt trades, is this made a monthly supply. And this is what I'm seeing on a lot of alts. We've got this monthly supply. Some of them are way down here and nowhere near testing it. Others are close to it and are potentially going to test it imminently. I'm reading Disclosure Crypto's messages again. It's a chart, but also with a great utility project. We're earning GARI tokens. But is it like, so, okay, is GARI the actual ticker? I don't know, it's the kind of thing I feel like it's not going to come up on TradingView, but I'll have a look in a moment. So this has come off the monthly supply. So again, my preference is for this to get to the monthly demand before looking for a buy. It does have a 3-day and a 5-day in here, so sure, it could bounce sooner, but if you're coming off a monthly supply, then monthly demand is typically what I'm looking at in the first instance. This is a mid-wave monthly demand, so as we've seen on many alts, it can go straight through it. So it also is entirely possible that Total 3 goes all the way down here, and or lower. So again, you know, it's back to the sort of the Elliott wave corrective. So we had this A correction of the bull move, B wave, and then the C wave again can go here for a zigzag correction, can go here for a triangle correction. If it was very aggressive, it could bounce on this monthly up here, and then so we're looking at that triangle correction. That would be obviously the most bullish scenario, but do not think that these scenarios are unrealistic for alts to go down here. It is entirely possible. It is it would be a very normal looking chart, and like I say, even with my limited knowledge of Elliott waves, for this to do an A, B, C is did that slightly more dramatically than I intended, but that really would not be an unusual pattern. and you're seeing that on a lot of alts at the moment. But it's not reflected in these total charts as yet, because they are supported by Bitcoin and Ether being stronger. But yeah, don't leave that out of your vocabulary for a possibility. Others is basically the same. So others, we already had the test on monthly demand previously, and it had a push up. And if you look at the lower time frames, you can see it had this 8-hour supply here. And again, this is why I always say you've got to wait for the break of structure. So sure, it bounced on monthly demand, but with a kind of messy and really annoying pattern, it just didn't make it past the 8-hour supply. So now it's come deeper into the monthly demand. It's not surprising. Also has made monthly supply and hasn't tested it. Also made a 5-day up here but hasn't tested it, and again just shows the weakness of alts relative to Bitcoin and Ether. But again, so this has, you know, another weekly demand down there, another one down here, and another one here. I mean, God knows where alts will be if this drops that much, because I guess it must be the meme coins and things like that that are really holding the charts up at the moment, or the aggregated charts up at the moment, because like a lot of the alts are looking horrendous. DeFi is another one that, again, this didn't make a monthly supply, it closed just above that monthly level there, but again has a bit of a drop down into monthly demand. So don't be FOMOing into alts. Don't be believing anybody that says this is likely to be the bottom. Sure, it might be a local bottom. Sure, there are factors that, you know, this could pick up support here, but I would only want this to pick up support here if there was another support here, which there isn't. Like, it was a fairly meme bounce in the first place, maybe just coming off the top of those highs. Others, fine. Like, if others had swing failed, or does swing fail still these lows, fine, then I could potentially be a little bit more bullish on it because it's in a monthly demand overall. But I don't like the fact, again, that total 3 isn't. So there's kind of mixed messages. But even on this, like, I feel like, yes, it could swing fail that low, but I want this a bit lower, if not down in the monthly demand. So I don't think this is an opportunity for generational wealth. There was an opportunity for generational wealth down here, you know, and kind of annoyingly, actually, I really wanted this to hit the annual, but it didn't. But again, like, you know, now it just makes me think there's even a higher possibility of this happening and coming down as the annual demand, which didn't get tested previously. So yeah, generational wealth has happened. I don't think there's another bull run right around the corner. Could be completely wrong. It's entirely up to you if you believe me or not. But you know, like, you can see a similar pattern here, I guess. You know, we had that big move. You had that big move and retrace, and then it went and took out the high. Yes, it's possible that happens. And again, it could be the expanded B wave. Like, you know, if this is what am I doing? We'll also be saying that this is an ABC, but if this is a bigger A, B, C, that's also possible. You know, when we get the expanded B there, or we get the B just into here. There's all these possibilities, and we're just looking at the zones as and when they hit. Now we've made monthly supply. I think it's very unlikely we're going to have an expanded B going above it. So if I compare that to here, for example, it hadn't made monthly supply. So yeah, still need to break demand to show there's a break in this, like, local bull structure, but we're coming in, we're in the monthly supply over here, and like I say, we're seeing a lot of alts are already down here. I think even some of the stronger ones, but I'd have to clarify that. Anyway, that's enough on those, but basically you get a sort of better idea of what I'm kind of thinking on this and why I'm overall more bearish. On the lower time frames, we just trade what we see, you know, it doesn't mean I think we're going to fall to 10k tomorrow, and I've already, like, shared a number of times the zones of interest, so obviously we're still looking for the local range to hold and the lower time frames to prove that. I don't like this 3-day supply. We have a weekly demand down here. There's a few too many lows underneath it, so I think originally saying I think we'd wick through it if we came back to visit. We've now spent so much time up here. I'm actually skeptical as to whether this would even hold at all. If we break the range, I think everyone's going to freak. So I don't know if we're going to get a bounce there, but we can wait and see. And then, you know, if we're looking from a FIB perspective as well, this would be still very aggressive entries. But I'd be looking at this weekly and the consolidation, and this is where the ETFs started buying. So that for me is a sort of a fairly critical price to hold if for the ETFs to support their original buying, or the ETF clients. And what else? Failing that, then we've got monthly demands and 3 monthly demands a lot lower, but some of my drawings are sort of appearing and reappearing and disappearing and reappearing at the moment, which is kind of annoying. Well, I might have a bit more of a think about the macro, bigger picture. When I think about this, I'm just thinking, sorry, I digressed in my head a little bit there. I'm just thinking, like, well, we talk about this deviation of the red box here. I'm wondering like what the reverse zone is for if I consider this a deviation of the highs. So like, for example, if I might need to turn the chart upside down so I can get my head right on it, but like this would be, you know, the support and then the deviation of the lows here, and then we got that retest in there and then moved up. So let's make that a red box. So we had that there. Then potentially this is another zone where it reclaimed that zone there, but you know, this again, so this 30k mark is at least previous SR, and certainly a decent place we'd expect to bounce if we get down to that kind of level. But yeah, I'd like to know where the reciprocal deviation level is up here. It's slightly more difficult because it's come out of all-time high, so there's nothing to measure against. But it would be basically the last supply here. But sorry, the reason I digressed in my head is I was slightly thinking of the monthly here. Anyway, what else? So Ether, just a quick one on Ether. I gave enough comments on this anyway. We had this large monthly demand. It was weak. We then made this 2-month, also weak, but slightly better than Bitcoin's version, but again, it's coming down deep inside this. I thought this sort of ETF start date was supposed to be due today, but I'm thinking now it's the 4th of July, so maybe I'm wrong about that because it's the 4th of July. I said yesterday I had a whole bunch of, I had 4 short entries through here just for sort of like scalp retest. I'm slightly more skeptical of them now because I still think if this does get a bounce and if an ETF suddenly gets approved, or I think it's already been approved, but suddenly starts and everybody suddenly randomly buys Ether, then I think we could get another giant green candle through here. But again, in this, still want this to hold this 3-day, which is basically sort of the equivalent of the red box on the Bitcoin chart, you know, with the deviation slightly below it. I want to see that test hold. I put in a slightly more aggressive entry on the daily demand here, or alert for an entry, just because I didn't want to get a front run. But I don't really like where the Korea chart is at the moment. Korea hasn't hit that same level, but the main reason for also adding that was that Ether CME had this 2-weekly demand earlier, but we are now drifting a little bit down into that anyway. So but overarchingly, similar to Bitcoin, I might want to see what this 2-month does. You know, if we do just run straight through it and it flips it to supply, it's going to be an easy short. But at the moment we're still in it, so I can still only be bullish. Slightly more bullish on Ether than I am on Bitcoin, because the 2-month is a better zone, and also because this ETHBTC by a hair made a 2-month. But you know, even if I disregard that, you know, it's actually got it's in a weekly now. So again, like if this weekly flips, then I'm going to go straight back to being bearish. But Ether's obviously sort of giving maybe slightly more hope, but I think it needs the ETF to bolster that, because if it wasn't for that, I would be a lot more skeptical about this. Again, just to reiterate previous analysis I've done, we've had this, what looks like a broadening wedge here. We are under this major trend line, and that's going to be on the log and linear store, it's all down here, but yeah, it was this pattern from previously, hide everything, that this, you know, when it looked like it was trying to bounce, then eventually fell off a cliff, and this is the corrective wave that we had in June 2019. You know, it bounced, and then that's when we had that C wave essentially, where we had the COVID dump at the end of it. And this is what I was looking at in a very similar PA here, where we had this sort of, I think it was potentially a little bit early on it. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly the same anyway, but you know, it's possible it's bottomed out and we're just not going to do that last part of it. But it was just making me think that, are we going to get this C wave on Bitcoin and Ether at the point of June 2019 would be at the point we're at now. We're just an expanded B wave rather than the shorter B wave or the lower high B wave that we got in 2018, 2019. But yeah, anyway, so while I was slightly more bullish with this weekly demand and the 2 months demand that's been put in on ETHBTC, I can also see it tried to do the same there. So yeah, again, just be careful now. I think it's a particular time to be careful. And I do think it's a time that you shouldn't just FOMO longs on everything, anything and everything. Bitcoin probably being, you know, I guess if you're a range trader and you want to trade, you want a long Bitcoin because it's the bottom of the range, then by all means go ahead. There is no reason why not. If you want a long Ether based on this retest of these demands at the start of that last impulse, again, there's good reasoning to do so from a local PA perspective. My concern is from that higher time frame PA and what the US dollar tether dominance chart is doing. Okay, so I don't want to go into more detail on Ether. Disclosure Crypto is still asking me about GARI, so we can have a quick look at GARI. I've never even heard of it. If it's going to appear on here, I'm not sure. So I was looking at ARK earlier actually, and again, this was like a real good example of what the alts are doing, and why you should just be, even if you only trade supply and demand on the highest time frames. It had 3 months supply, it went up high inside it, admittedly in this case, but it's just waxed straight down off it. We're now back in 3 month demand. And this is, you know, arguably it's a previous downtrend with a retest, but it could now obviously bounce. It does have a high time frame demand here. It could form a triangle and bounce and start to change an uptrend, but really like a lot of these charts are really quite clear, like, and it was somewhat difficult because like there would have been, you know, there was a monthly supply here, so it's like at what point do you get in, and this in this case has gone all the way to the top. But again, like looking at a lot of these alt charts we're seeing now, we had a monthly, something in this case, you know, it had a monthly supply, it already put in a monthly supply there, and then now it's confirmed another monthly supply there, and it's just dropped straight off the start of this month. So yeah, you know, just be conscious of these patterns on alts. If you want to start looking for longs again, like wait until we're in these zones on individual alts, and just wait for the others in the total 2 charts before you get all too excited about it. Okay, GARI, here we go. Token I've never heard of. I don't know what the best chart is to use. Normally it's the one I like to use, the one with the most history. So I should probably I'll do it how I always do it. I'll be nice to you. Disclosure Crypto, GARI, USD. So this is how I typically add tokens to my lists, is I add all of them, and then I just do a quick run through and see which has the most history. So maybe OKX. The only thing with OKX and HTX is that I think they use different timing, because they sometimes change the levels in the charts and really throw me off. Actually, NextC looks like a fine chart to use. So yeah, get a little class in how I do top down as well. So on the annual there's nothing. On the 6 month we've got a 6 month supply here. 3 month, messy, there's 3 month supply, there and there, and again, it's when you build these charts from top down that you can really learn what price is doing. So I really encourage you not to just trade local price and to just build everything top down, because you can really see. So obviously we didn't get a test of this upper level, but on the 3 month, you know, this had this close below, it wicked all the way down, but then it came back up and it couldn't get past the 3-month supply. And you're thinking of that as 3 months of people buying there that got trapped when price dropped lower. So not surprising it hasn't got past supply. It's now created on the January candle, it created another 3-month supply, and it's literally just tapped off the level there and dumped straight off it. I'm not sure why you like this token, Disclosure Crypto, assuming you're still watching. What did you say? Great utility project. Unfortunately, great utility projects, fundamentals don't really matter in the crypto market. I know fundamentalists like to say they matter, but really it needs, everything will still need an overall bull market, and they still need the TA to support any up move. Okay, so I guess you've got hope here. This is going to make a higher low, but it really is just hope at this stage. Sorry, mouse is just clicking in places where I don't want it to. But yeah, so it's monthly supply in there. It's made a new monthly supply. So again, I'm just not bullish on this. And 3 week, 2 week, weekly, not really giving me much new. So again, we had a weekly supply over here. So again, yeah, like I say, you just see these very, very clear. Weekly got tested, dropped, came back, tested that same level, and then dropped a lot more. In the meantime, made a 3-month supply, and when it's come and tested that, so then dropped again. I expect, so again, my expectation is when we test a supply that it's going to take out the low of the candle prior. So if we look for a 3-month perspective, so this 3 months did have a really strong bounce, but it rejected the 3-month supply, so I expect it to take out this low. If we get a swing failure of this low, then you can long. But the expectation, you know, when you're looking at an uptrend or a downtrend, is that this, you know, it's that we take out that low. So if I look at this on maybe the monthly, it's slightly clearer, so we're coming down, up, down, up, down. Really, for the long entries, you're looking for it to break that wave and then get in on the retest there. Obviously, that's not going to make you overly happy if you want to buy at 80.008 cents versus if you're buying at 10 times higher, essentially. But that's really what you're looking at for the break of structure. So beyond that, after it's taken out this low, if it gives you some sort of, so what you're then doing is going down to the lower time frames, daily, 12-hour, 8-hour, or whatever, and basically doing the exact same. So we're in this downtrend on the daily. Once it's taken out this low, you're then looking for some daily supply in here. Let's say price goes below the low, takes out the supply by the retest. Hope that makes sense. But yeah, sorry, I know you're saying this is good utility, this GARI token, Disclosure Crypto, but yeah, it's still in an epic downtrend. You know, if you get lucky, there is, you know, so you can look at the start of the impulse, so, you know, there is a mild chance it'll bounce here. And, you know, like I don't like saying it will take out the low, because while I believe that is the case, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, this is a strong impulse here, that we're not going to get some sort of decent bounce before it even does that, that you may want to trade. And, you know, it could take 2 years to actually do what I've just said it's going to do. And in fact could, you know, if this is the 3-month supply that we're looking at, like that's my expectation. However, there is no reason it can't do this higher into the 3-month before it drops, you know, and then forms this bigger sort of ABC in the middle and a bear flag. So while my target of a shorting on this trade would be below the low, obviously then you'd be a fool to let it come all the way back on you if it does bounce off the start of the impulse. So you can watch here for an entry, but my preference is for it to go below the low and then to get in on the retest. But either way, there's nothing really that's saying you should be buying this right now. Anyway, we digressed with GARI. The other thing I was going to quickly talk about, and I've just realised time is running against me as per usual. I'm going out this evening. I just want to quickly talk about the majors, which obviously are going to hell. I made a big error of judgment yesterday on some of them because they were just being so slow. And against my better judgment and foolishly listening to a lot of people that I shouldn't have been listening to, oh wow, EOS has really died. I put some kind of more aggressive longs in because they've made some daily demands, and not on these ones thankfully, but on some of the other new majors, and they just got completely run through. So again, like, you know, as you know, I've been bearish on these, and I wanted lower levels. I still probably need to double check those levels, but Ripple was the only one that actually bounced up into the supply that I wanted to short, so that was a great short entry if you took it. And longs are still significantly lower on here. Then I've got, like, yeah, ideally into this monthly on a swing fail there, but it's like 4 times, it's almost hit the level. I'm wary that it's going to go through. Then various levels below, which I'll probably need to look at more closely. There is, you know, there are a couple of 6 months in there, but then 2 months and 3 months. So, you know, again, it wouldn't surprise me if it goes significantly lower. I'm quite bearish on Ripple on the macro. Litecoin, similarly, I haven't been putting any longs on this because of just the messy wickiness that we've had over here. So again, like, I had a trend line break short on it because I didn't think it was going to reach my zone up here, and it didn't, but it unfortunately did go a bit higher, or retraced some of it after breaking the trend line. So I'm not sure if anyone took that, but it would have made it slightly a challenging entry unless your stop was above the previous high. Long entries on this are like miles away, but that doesn't mean I don't think it will bounce here. It's just the wicks make it really, these zones really not clean. So I just wanted to see that a bit more, but you know, if it does get to $36, that would be when you're looking to buy Litecoin. EOS, I think I've already said, and I now expect this to break all-time low. It is another good example of just a blatant downtrend when everybody's bullish. You know, it had an annual supply up here, it hasn't come and tested it, but it then also made, what is this, 2-month supply, 3-month supply here, came down, aggressive retest, but short, expect to break the low. And you know, while we might swing fail breaking this low, or take some of these lows, possible bounce from here, particularly because Bitcoin seems to now be trying to bounce. I thought we were going to take out the low of the whole chart at this point. There is a daily demand in there. I think it's not on this chart, but I had it on the CoinTrader.pro chart, which has all the history. So that's pretty crap. And BCH is very similar. So again, I wanted a slightly more aggressive test. This now, I should also say, you need to check all your charts now for monthly and 3 monthly supplies. So in this case, it's got a monthly supply. So I've got, I've already had the short in there, I think, but I've now said 2-day supply with a monthly at the top of it. So again, if we get any bounce that comes up here, then I'm looking for shorts on these retests. Nearly 100% on many alts now. And the next alert on the long side on BCH is down on this 3-month demand, but again, I'm quite conscious of these trend line stops. For this to throw a giant wick through here would not be unsurprising. But I've got the alert on the top, and we'll just see what happens across that bridge when we come to it. So yeah, just a quick, let's just go on the monthlies quickly and just do it so you can actually see what's going on here. But so there's no new monthly supply on Litecoin. Oh, 2 months, sorry. Thought something was slightly off there. Yeah, so there is a new monthly supply on Litecoin. And again, like I said, I've got alerts. There's 2-day, 4-day supply, and monthly at the top of it. Alerts on that and the monthly there. Alerts on for Ripple on the monthly. BCH on the monthly. EOS just generally is weaker, but also does have the monthly supply. I just haven't. I'm keep running out of alerts, and I can see when I look at these charts it's because I've got 2 or 3 on each one, whereas I try and only have one above or below. I still got the 2-day supply on EOS because it hadn't even tested locally, but then it will have the monthly supply above that as well. So yeah, again, I'm not. Of course, we can get a bounce. If we make weekly supplies in between, then that's really going to push this a lot lower. But yeah, I still want to see more down on these at this stage. If we come back and negate or flip this weekly these weekly supplies and they become demands, then again we can reconsider, but my bias is still quite bearish on these. And yeah, the old majors is just hard because the demands aren't clean. I mean, it's the only one that's clean is BCH, and that has just got space before it gets there. Looking in the wrong place, but could swing fail here on BCH actually. So that is worth it. Actually, is worth considering, but possibly not a very likely trade. But yeah, keep an eye on BCH on that. You know, I still prefer this monthly, but you know, it's possible it's going to get a swing fail there. And then the new majors, very similar scenario. So these where I did mess up on these yesterday. Like I said, I was getting bored of waiting, and thought ADA might do a bit better than that. Actually, it's surprising. So yeah, I was getting bored of waiting, and then they'd all made these sort of daily demands or 2-day demands. And here we'd had multiple tests on these supplies. So you can see on BNB. We've had, had a good few tests on these supplies, so I thought that we might get a bounce on this 2-day. It's not the best 2-day, and I didn't like the wick, but you know, I thought with slope here that we might get a bounce to push up to higher supply, but no, it decided to just fall off a cliff instead. So yeah, having said that, we did get some really nice short entries prior to that. So I already had the short on the BNB daily supply. If anyone held on to that would have taken some patience. But similarly on Link, you know, it's basically exact same scenario as BNB, that we had daily supply, which I was short on here. It came back up for a second test. I thought maybe we'd get a bounce on the daily demand to go higher for like another wave up to the next zone, but no, plowed straight back through it. MATIC, exactly the same scenario. So now MATIC again is another more interesting one. It's made a monthly supply, and also now has made a 6 monthly supply. So this was a 6 monthly demand, and it's just gone straight back through it. It's right at the bottom. I mean, there's still a minuscule amount of hope that it could pick up support just above here, in which case I wouldn't consider the 6 monthly supply, but it also still has a monthly supply in there now. Like, I'm just, while this was in a giant triangle and I was slightly more positive about it, let's look at the log chart. We are now fairly significantly outside of the bottom of the triangle, with the monthly close a lot lower, and again looking for much lower levels. I think I'd put that in just as a potentially interim bounce, but yeah, be careful on this, because I do think we can start seeing some larger waves down now, and you know, maybe not imminently. My preference would be for it to come off the monthly supply first, but take all these out now. Again, it's just holding support here again, possible swing fail of that low. I mean, yeah, we could get some swing fails, because I know people like to trade them, but I only like to trade swing fails that I think are in significant levels, and I don't think this is a particularly significant level. I would rather it were lower. But yeah, anyway, if we get big bounces, I'll reconsider my bias. But at this stage, shorts and monthly supply, likely to make 3-day, 5-day, weekly in between. So we could get more aggressive shorts off there. Conscious that it could make a double bottom here, but it's weak. This is a weak demand. So like again, looking at all the charts as you should. So this is fine. We had a decent bounce off there. It did go straight into supply, so fine to long here. But this has been unable to break supply from the prior wave. Therefore, I expect this to go deeper in demand, not to hold this demand. But possibly it can if it's a triangle, so it's worth considering. But now we had that try here, and it couldn't get very far. So anyway, that's MATIC. So again, we had a nice short, but then horrible long, and then finally ADA. ADA was the one that was kind of like worth watching, because ADA's slightly more bullish on the macro perspective, being it's a 3-month demand there. And also didn't really make it into proper supply up here, which I mean, arguably you could say it's because it's weaker. It fairly, didn't manage to make the monthly like a lot of them did, but also it can mean that it might have a new run. So I was watching for longs on this, and still am. But also now new monthly supply above makes it doubly challenging. So 3-month demand, but monthly supply. but that doesn't mean you shouldn't look for long. So again, this one I was, I left this in even though the others were clearly breaking down. And is this still in the 3-day? Yeah, I mean arguably this is still in the 3-day, but it's taken a wick. So this is why I was potentially looking. So while we got a decent short of 2-day supply up here, potentially looking for that higher low to be put in on this, and I think that this is still possible. So and I still had the original alert was for the monthly demand, so this is still possible. This puts in a higher low here if Bitcoin does hold. So keep an eye on that one. BNB I haven't actually looked a lot lower. Obviously there's a 3-month level there that it's just picked up again as support, so it could hold here. That's where we're looking at. But if it doesn't, looking down here lower, I think this also saved itself, didn't quite create a monthly supply in there either, but it's probably going to have a weekly or a 3-week in there unless it bounces really hard now. But again, massive drop on BNB if it does break this zone. Those are the first set of new majors, and then the second set. So DOT had a monthly supply, so again, while I had the original 2-day supply short in there, which you would have seen if you followed my last update, then it had a monthly supply. So I said in the group that this was probably going to be the only monthly to hit, or it was going to be the first monthly to hit. Hence why I thought we might go higher on the other ones as well, so that they could hit the monthly supply. And it's had a really nice reaction off there. This is one of the ones I didn't put in a demand on. I actually think I had a possible long entry, but then I thought, no, don't be stupid, it's coming off monthly supply. So yeah, but it is bouncing, at least at the start of the impulse, but again, expect this to take out the low, and that might be too aggressive on the long side now. It's coming off monthly supply. I would expect this probably quite a lot lower. So that's DOT. Sol, not dissimilar. Again, I didn't have a long entry on this, but had the short entry off the 2-day supply initially, and it's gone I think higher. I think it was this zone that this first entry was off, but it has gone higher inside, but didn't make it to my next entry. Again, has a 2-day demand here, but I didn't alert it because I just don't really like Sol at the moment. Yeah, it's just not. Again, it's multiple hits on this single demand, with other demands below. So there's 2-week and a monthly demand in there, and a weekly down here that weren't tested. So again, when you've got a sort of an aggressive re-entry, I'd much rather wait. And again, following the same logic that while we can make a triangle, this demand here is not strong enough to take out this supply. So thus, my preferred entry is lower in here, even though we know we can make a triangle. But triangle, I will just wait and see what happens. And that follows the same logic as not trading any supply or demand twice. So it can get an immediate test. So like, for example, this is a horrible wick, but for example, it can get the immediate test here, and then I'll take the second, but I won't call this zone again unless there's something significant that's sat on top of it, and this has been a big up move. But in this case, no, I'm not going to call it again because it's a lower high. Other than for a scalp, sorry, I should say from a macro perspective, I do have long entries in here, so that just completely disagreed with what I said. But I'm also putting entries on these for scalps as well as macro high time frame entries. But yeah, generally this wouldn't be a decent long zone based on what's happened here. So that's Sol, and Near was another one where I put the aggressive long, and again, just it had this first hit on the daily supply, decent short entry, and it held it. And again, I think I put that in towards the end of Tuesday, thinking again that this is probably going to have one more bounce and might get a bit higher inside the supply, but it didn't. It actually made a lower high, so the reverse triangle scenario, and now dropping. Again, could pick up this demand. Preferences for monthly a lot lower. Also has the monthly supply in that one as well. Various levels higher that I haven't. Atom is just a mess. It's similar to MATIC, so Atom did also have a 6-month demand, which is now flipped to a 6-month supply. Excuse me. And doubly so, like it had got a 6-month supply up here and has closed below this 6-month level here. So really, you know, my preferred entries now are down on this 6 month in here. I think I've got about 2 to 3 week, 2 week and 3 week demand just below this wick. So that's possible those get picked up, but really, you know, the preference is not all of down there, this lower 6 month there. Presuming those even hold. But again, now 6 month supply and 1 month supply thrown in here, yeah, I'd be looking for shorts. Actually, no, it doesn't have a 1 month supply on this because it's been too red. It didn't even manage a green candle in the middle to create the 1 month supply, but it has a 3 week supply, so I'd be looking for a retest there for the drop, or failing that, the 6 month. But again, yeah, these just bear patterns are quite clearly playing out on the monthly time frames. I think that's everything on the new and old majors and all that. GARI again. ARC. Let's put back to the previous chart. Excuse me. So I'm having a lot of things are now just sort of hitting really deep in demands. LOOM I had high hopes for because it actually had an annual demand in there, but again, even that has not held, and after ridiculous up moves which never retested for me, come and retrace the entire thing, which is not really surprising because this is just very typical of a crypto chart. Kind of a nice level here though, like I don't mind this as possible long, but you know, it might come all the way down into here now because it has had quite a few bounces off this level, but do keep an eye on LOOM. Yeah, that probably wasn't the best example of a chart to give on just showing the more bearish side, I guess, that, you know, ONT had a 3 monthly demand there. It's come really deep down inside it, but it's coming off an annual supply up here, so you know, you can't, just don't forget this when you're looking at all these alt charts, that like this is super clean. You know, it has an annual supply, it's retested the annual supply, I expect it to take out the low. It's that, really is that simple. And while you can get interim bounces and it might make a higher low, so hence you put in possible long entries, you know, the logic is it takes out that low. The logic is it takes out that low because the annual supply should win. If you're going to have a battle of supplies, that should be, you know, and you can see I'm heavily short biased at the top here, and so I'm a little early, you know, this can take time, you know, but heavily, and then it didn't come back for the last one, but did manage to get 2 entries, despite not being very on top of it. But so that's you know, that's really what you're looking for, and I think I didn't alert this 3 month demand again because of the trend line. So again, just be conscious of all these things when you're looking at these charts. Some old lines in here that we need to go, yeah, don't be FOMOing in thinking things are just going to go straight back up again. The only things that you should consider, you know, are, you know, the newer stuff and the meme coins. You know, they don't have supply, so that's the major difference. That doesn't mean they can't retrace all the way down here, and I expect them to at some stage. But you know, when I shared my list of coins with monthly demands, POPCAT was one of them, and again, you know, a lot of them we did have a drop after that, so a lot of them came deeper into the demand, and some even broke down. But you know, you're looking at the zones inside. So we had this massive monthly demand, and then we had a 3 week demand in here, and 2 week I think there. So I'm re-alerting lower zones inside the big monthly, and then we finally do get a decent up move. And then again here we're now testing 2 week demand. I think it didn't quite hit my alert up there for testing all-time high. You know, and again, so the structure isn't ideal because for this to be a good zone, this should have broken a high, but it's possible that we get a break here. Yeah, so keep an eye out for some of these meme coins, but just be very careful and don't be holding anything that's a meme coin. You know, if like Disclosure Crypto, you want to hold something like GARI because it's got good utility, that's great. For some reason those messages have disappeared now, I don't know if he's deleted them, but yeah, POPCAT, MOG, Mu, you know, the sort of the cat coins are the new dog coins. But yeah, just again, like so, I chose SHIB actually for that same reason. Like, just be conscious that these cat coins are likely to do what the dog coins did. So you know, we had this massive pump on SHIB in November 2021, and it retraced the whole thing. So don't think that the cat coins aren't going to do exactly the same thing at some stage. got a really nice short entry on SHIB yesterday actually as it fell off trend. Which is slightly front run my alert for the next demand on that, but yeah, I mean, and that's an aggressive long anyway, but yeah, don't think that these aren't going to do exactly the same. And again, this is another nice example that this has an annual supply, and SHIB's come up into the annual supply, and therefore I do expect it to break out these lows now. But I guess we'll see, and we see what bounces we get in between, and there's no reason we shouldn't get a bounce. You know, this 8 hours a bit aggressive, given how much PA it's got above it now. I probably would have had that in for a while, but you know, certainly on this monthly, if it gets down here, like monthly, 3 monthly demand in here, this is where you're looking possibly for a decent sized bounce. You know, in decent size even being something like this, not necessarily that craziness. But yeah, you can certainly get some tradable bounces in the interim. Yeah, so what else? I think that's probably everything, and I really do need to go and get ready to get out now because it's +5. So I hope that's helpful and gives you the high time frame of what I want on Bitcoin. Don't like all these crosses all the way down here, but I'm not going to just say, oh, wait until 10k or 30k to buy, but those would be the two sort of areas that I'm interested in from a macro perspective. But for now, we're just looking if we're going to get a higher low here or a swing fail of the low. Preferably a swing fail of the low, because that then follows this corrective pattern for another possible up move. Any closing below here won't be good, and then you should definitely expect lower. Any retest of the 3-day supply won't be good, sorry, failed retest, so again expect lower. Ether basically the same. I think I can pretty comment because this has made a 3-day supply as well, yeah. So Ether basically the same thing, would be looking for a retest of that 3-day for a further drop, but a bit conscious here of the chop above, but would still, yeah, still look for shorts on that 3-day in the first instance. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Okay, so hopefully that's of some help. Let me know in Telegram if you have any questions or if you want any more information about anything. And trade safely, be conscious of the high time frames, and yeah, manage your risk. Have a good day.